Okay, so good day, students. This video lecture is a continuation of Module 3, Part 3. And the topics that will be discussed in this video are the usability and experience goals, or the differences of these two. Under this topic, is also will be also discuss the desirable aspects and the undesirable aspects of the UX, or user experience, no, and also later in this video, design principles will also be discussed. All right, so the topics, or the coverage, no, of the user experience, or the user experience goals, which will be based, no, in the emotions and the felt experiences of the user. Okay, so that includes the desirable and undesirable ones. Okay, when we talk about experience, no, this is different this is quite different sa usability goals, which was discussed in the previous module, katong na effectiveness, efficiency, and so on. But here, this covers the range of emotions and felt experiences of the user. Okay, so we have sa desirable aspects, so mao ni siya, a few examples, or a few I want to mention is unsa siya ka-satisfying, or when it comes to the desirable aspects of the user experience, no, kung satisfying ba ang isa ka product, uh, in the sense na satisfied siya sa iyahang gusto nga buhaton. Also enjoyable, na enjoy ba siya, na entertain ba siya, engaging, no, interactive ba ang product, and exciting ba siya, and helpful ba siya, and so many more. So daghan kaayo siya og desirable aspects, which these aspects that taps the emotion, no, of the user. And also sa undesirable, no, so naay boring, naay frustrating, naay annoying, unpleasant. So mao na yung mga undesirable nga kanang dili ka nais-nais, no, or dili siya kanang this is the emotion na the negative aspects, or the negative emotion towards the product. Okay, so let's go back to the previous page. Okay, so remember that these qualities, no, nga I have mentioned are subjective, no. When we say subjective, it depends, or mag-base siya on the user, no, or on how the user feels towards the system. Okay, so they differ from the objective of the usability goals. Kaya ang concern ni usability again is nasay target, or nasay goal, depende sa, or not depend, but ug unsay dapat mahitabo sa isa ka sa system itself. Okay, and this one, the user experience, no, or the concern with the user experience is how the product, or how the product is so interactive, no, in the perspective of the user, rather than mag-assess ta sa usefulness sa isa ka product, mag-assess ta sa effectivity sa isa ka product, no. Whereas the terms nga gi-describe sa usability, it comprise of na siya distinction gamay, no, or a small distinct set, and many more terms are used to describe the nature of the user experience, no, somehow. So medyo nag-overlap siya, so naay goal sa usability, but then that also affects, no, or that also overlaps sa kaning ginatawag natog experience or the user experience goal. So for example, when we describe, no, listening to music, no, for example, maminaw kag music, no, sa while naligo ka, no, there are users nga malingaw ana, no, nga mag-shower. I don't know sa inyo kung inana sad mo. Ako inana ko sometimes I take a bath and I listen to music, and for me it's highly pleasurable para sa ko, and that is the desirable aspect, no, sa user experience. But some others, no, katong uban, they are more apt to describing listening to music sa while driving a car, no, mas ma-enjoy sila diadto. Okay, so some also they felt excited when they listen to high-end powerful music, kanang saba kaayo, or some others are kanang mga hilom or emotional kay nga mga songs, no, so that their emotions will be fulfilled, no, or so ma-satisfy ilang emotion. So while listening to it, sa smartphone pod, no, usay mas nindot siya paminaw, mas enjoyable siya kung naka-shuffle, no, kay medyo naa siya'y murag excitement pod, kay murag dili ka kabalo unsay mahitabo unsay music next nga i-play. So inana, so the process of selecting terms, no, nga ang pinaka the best nga mo convey sa user the feelings of the user, the emotions, the sensations, and so forth, no, when using or interacting with the product at that given time or at that place, it can help the designers understand. So masabtan sa designers what are the multi-faceted or daghag area nga pwede ma-experience or pwede ma-trigger ang isa ka user experience. For example, kaning enjoyment depende sa isa ka user. So the concept, no, can be further defined in terms sa elements nga ma-contribute sa tawag na the elements that contribute to making user experience pleasurable, fun, and exciting. So that includes attention, that includes interactivity, that includes style, that includes flow, no? So daghan kaayo. All right, so okay, here we have, okay, we're going to discuss now the design principles. So kani siya, this is used by the designers so that they're thinking, no, kung mag-design sila sa user experience, no, ma-assess or maka-assist ni siya when the designer will design, no, a certain product for the user experience. So these are generalizable abstractions intended to orient the designers toward thinking about different aspects of the design. So a well-known example is feedback, no. Ang product nadyo na siya design nga feedback, or it should be designed to provide an adequate feedback sa users that informs them about kung unsa nay kanang nahumana nga mga features, so that they know what to do next, no, in the interface. No, kung magpagamit kag products, dapat nadyo na siya feedback, no, para makabalo ang user kung asa siya dapit nga mo hatag og comment, no. So another one is findability. No, this refers to the degree or to the extent nga ang isa ka object or isa ka function is easy to discover or locate. No, for example, a website, no, mag-navigate og website or kanang mangita ka sa kuan sa function nga delete, no, sa isa ka image, no, sa when you are in your gallery, no, or you're in your if you have a digital camera, no, findability dali ra pangitawon ang isa ka function. Now related to this is the navigability, no. This is obvious, no, kung asa ba ka moadto, no, kung asa ba ka moadto sa or na ba kay pangitaon nga menu sa isa ka interface, no. And dira nag-refer ang navigability. So design principles are derived from mixed theory-based knowledge, no, experience and common sense. So mao ni siya diri siya gid-derive na siya mix nga theory-based knowledge, no, experience and also common sense. So we have a number of design principles, no, nga atong i-discuss diri. So the best known are concerned with how to determine unsay dapat makita sa user o unsa dapat iyang buhaton when carrying out their task, no, using the product, no. And the common ones we are going to discuss are the visibility, the feedback, constraints, consistency, and affordance. Alright, so first we have visibility. So isa sa example ani, no, just to mention an example is katong voicemail system, again sa katong module 1 nato nga discussion. The voicemail system made the presence and number of waiting messages invisible, no, katong pila ka messages ang wala na open, and also the pila ka book ang na open na, no, nga message, and we could not determine. So in short, invisible to siya nga mga mga functions, while katong answering machine made those I have mentioned visible, diba? So the more visible ang functions, the more likely it is that ang user will be able to know, no, unsay buhaton niya sunod. So the more nga visible siya, mas dali para sa user unsay buhaton niya next. So according to Don Norman, no, he describes the controls of a car to emphasize this point. So the controls for different operations are clearly visible, such as indicators, headlights, horns, hazard warning lights, no, indicating what can be done. Kaysa icon pa lang daan, makabalo na ta para asa ang isa ka button, no, kay tungod sa icon, and that is part of the design. So the relationship between the way the controls have been positioned dito sa car and what they do makes it easier for the driver to find, bisan pag dili na butang ang label ang isa ka button. Okay, kay mas appropriate man siya, no, ang icon that is designed is very appropriate to the function sa isa ka button. In contrast, kung ang function is out of sight and lisod siya pangitaon, lisod siya also lisod siya gamiton, no, kung dili dayon siya makitaan, lisod siya gamiton, no, dili kay siya magamit, no. For example, devices and environments that have become automated through the use of sensor technology, no, usually for hygiene and energy saving reasons, like faucets, elevators and lights, usahay lisod kaayo na siya for people to know how to control, especially how to activate or deactivate them, no, kanang mga naay sensor, no. Ako na isa ko sa biktima ana kanang faucet nga naay sensor, and it will really make a person ignorant, no, using it the first time. Okay, maabot man ka sa ilalom sa lababo, maabot man ka bisag asa, wa jud kay button, and at the end of kuan, sensor day siya, no, ang ending kay sensor day siya. And again, this can result, no, people getting caught short and frustrated. Okay, all right, so here this is an example, no, an example of poor visibility interface. All right, so this is a okay, what is this one? So this is a control panel, no, for an elevator. Okay, so how does it work, no, based on what you can see, no, nakita nimo na ay button tulo ka buok. How does it work based on what you see? Okay, so unsa may gamit sa button sa elevator? Usually you push a button kung asa ka nga floor, di ba? Di ba, mao man na siya function. So when you push a button, first button, nothing happens, and you push any other button, still nothing. Now what do you need to do? Unsay sunod button, since you can only see here 3 buttons, and then wala na dayon, no? Dili siya visible unsay gamiton. So kanida siya nga buttons or control panel for an elevator. This needs a card, no, nga itap lang siya before siya magamit. Na siya voice sensor. So this is one of the example nga automated siya. So na siya itap lang siya, and then na siya voice sensor, and then the button mo din na siya ang mo din na siya ang confirmation, no, for the command. So the function is not visible as to what you want to do. Okay, so importante kaayo ni siya nga design principle nga masabtan. So this one, so how to improve the this type of poor design. So with this elevator, you need to insert your room card, no. You can just insert so para ma-improve na to ang design, pwede siya butangan, no, og slot, so that if kung tulura siya ka button, no, and then walay kuan, wala ta kabalon sa buhaton, unsay nindot para ma-design. So first is you make the card reader more obvious, kay dili man kay siya maklaro, no. Dapat klaro siya nga dito siya i-insert or dito siya i-tap ang card, no. And we can also provide, no, an auditory message that says what to do and what language, no, mapilian, or what language ang pwede or available, no. So next, we can provide also a big label next to the card reader that flashes when someone enters, no. Mura siyang ATM ba, no, mo flash siya, nasa flash para ilhan sa isa ka user kung sa iyang buhaton, kung pwede na ba siya insert or nabasa ba siya, and make relevant parts visible, no. Also make what has to be done obvious, no. There are some other things, no, you as a user, no, pwede niyo i-improve so that the user at one look masabtan niya unsaon paggamit sa isa ka product, no. This for example. All right, so another example, balik ta sa katong gihatag nga ko nga example ganina, katong faucet. So this one shows, no, this is actually an invisible automatic control, no, nga faucet. All right, okay. Yeah. So this figure, no, in this picture, no, what you see in the presentation, this shows a sign that explains how to use, no, automatically controlled faucet, no, for what is normally an everyday and well learned activity. So naa na siya label dira and that is how you are going to use. And it also states that the the faucet cannot be operated if you are wearing black clothing. So dili basahon kung nakaitom ka. Right? So it does not explain, however, what do you do, no, if you are wearing black clothing? What if nakaitom ka? What does it have an instruction? No, wala nakabutang. So increasingly, highly visible controlling device, no, like knobs, buttons, and switches, which are much better to use, have been replaced, no, by invisible and activating zones where people have to guess where to move their hands, no. So much better, no, nga katong mga buttons, no, those are the buttons if dili ganahan ang dili ganahan ang user for a sensor, especially kid nakaitom ka, no, at least naman, no, naay mga naay mga other options nga buhaton ang user para makagamit siya sa makagamit siya gihapon sa faucet. Okay? Alright, so next is feedback. So this is still related, no, to the visibility, no? So imagine trying to play, no, a guitar or you can slice a bread, no, using a knife, or write using a pen, no, if none of the actions produce any effect for several seconds. So what if kana imbuhaton and walay mahitabo, walay effect, no? So there would be an unbearable delay, no, for the music was produced, no, since wala siya effect, no, in bis mag-slice kag bread walay nahitabo, or the words katong nagsulat ka and then nothing appeared on the paper, making it almost impossible, no, for the person to continue with the next thing that the person is going to do, no. And si feedback involves sending back information, no, about what action has been done and what has been accomplished. So allowing the person to continue with the activity. So what if naka-activity gibuhat and then walay nahitabo, no, and then dira mo sulod si feedback, no. Feedback that involves sending of information back to the user and what has been done or what is the next thing to do. So various kinds of feedbacks are available, no, for interaction design. It can be through audio, it could be verbal, no, it could be visual, and also combinations. Ato akong i-mention, no. For example, when screen button is clicked, it provides sound or red highlight feedback, diba? So ana ay mga buttons nga makabalo ka nga na-click na siya, no, if ma-change ang color sa button or ma-change ang text or naay sound nga mo produce. Okay, so that is a form of feedback, no. So using feedback in the right way can also provide the necessary visibility, no, for the user interaction, no. That is why related siya ni visibility si feedback. Alright, so very simple lang naman. So constraints, no, when we say constraints, so the design concept ni constraints, this refers to determining ways of restricting the kinds of user interaction that can take place at a given moment. So when you say constraint, murag na ay restriction, no, kung what types of user ang allowed, or what types of user ang makagamit lang ato nga function. And there are various ways that this can be achieved, no. A common design practice in GUI or graphical user interface is i-deactivate, no, like there's a button pero dili siya clickable, and that is the activation of a certain menu ba kaha or options by shading them gray, or tangtangon ang kuan, or tangtangon ang color ng inana, so thereby that restrict the user only to actions permissible at that stage of activity. So na ay mga functions nga dili available, no, sa constraints, no. If you can imagine kanang magkuan mo kanang even sa Word, no, na ay mga functions dito nga dili siya visible, no. Kung for example even sa mga mag-design ka og graphics like Photoshop, or even sa mga programming environment, no, na ay mga or even simply sa office nga tools like Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, so makita nato sa tab, click siya pero not all menus or commands there are clickable because na siya restriction or ginatawag nga constraints. Alright, so so one of the advantages of this form is that it prevents the user from selecting incorrect options and thereby reduces the chance of making a mistakes, no, para lang nga dili masayop, no, helping the users to reduce the chances of making a mistakes. So the use of different kinds of graphical representations can also constrain a person's interpretation of a problem or information space. For example, flowchart diagrams that shows which objects are related to which, thereby constraining the way that the information can be perceived. So, one example, no, sa kinds of graphical representation, no, if naa siya constraints. All right, so the physical design of a device can also constrain how it used, no. So ang physical design pud kuno sa isa ka device, not just the software or the graphical design, pwede po siya, no, buhatan in a way nga na butangan siya og constraints, no. For example, the external slots, no, in the computer, no, this has been designed to allow a cable or card to be inserted in a certain way only. So bantay mo nga sa likod sa mga system unit, di ba? So kung HDMI ra ang isaksak dito, napod siya iyaha nga slot design, di ba? So dili malibog ang kuan, bisan pag dili ka ila ang user og unsa ng HDMI, pero since nakita niya nga musibo siya dito, mupansak siya dito, so okay ra gyapon. So sometimes, however, the physical constraints is not clear. Okay, so for example, what you are seeing here, the figure shows part, no, of the back of the computer. So the parts of the back of computer nakita ninyo, and there are two sets of connector, or there are two sets of connectors. The two on the right, this is for the mouse and the keyboard, di ba? And they look identical, no, pare-pareha sila og forma and physical constrained in the same way, no. How do you know, no, which is which? How do you identify kung asa ani ang sa keyboard or mouse? So the best thing, no, the best thing buhaton is unsa man is to put a label, no? Pwede na to butangan og label. And aside sa label, pwede po siya butangan og label nga na color coding, no? Color coded label or the label which is an icon, no? Pwede ibutang, no, instead sa design. So how to design them logically? So A, we can provide direct adjacent mapping, no, sa tapad sa connector, no, between icon and the connector. So much better nga itapad ang icon sa connector para mahibaw-an sa user, or provides color coding that associates the connectors with the label. So ganina wala siya color coding, no, para mas masabtan gibutangan siya og color around the connector based on the color of the icon. Okay. So for consistency, this refers to the designing interfaces, no, to have similar operations and use similar elements for achieving similar tasks, no? So in particular, a consistent interface is one that follows rules, no, such as using the same operation to select all objects. For example, consistent nga mga operations, no, using the same input action, no, to highlight any graphical object in the interface, such as clicking the left mouse button, no, click mo sa left mouse, you can you can select, or you can view, no, more options, no, and kung right pod, no, kung left mouse, that is for selecting, kung right, that is for more options, di ba? And wala na naanda nato. So inconsistent nga mga interface, on the other hand, allows exceptions to a rule, no? An example here is email, no? We have email messages. It can be highlighted, no, only by using the right mouse button, while other operations are highlighted using the left mouse button. So magdepende siya, and those are the exceptions. But the problem with this kind of inconsistency is that it would make difficult, no, for the users to remember, and it will be more prone to mistakes, no? Kaya dapat consistent siya. So sa right click o left click pa lang daan sa mouse, no, naanda na to nga when we're going to select, left click din na siya. So one of the benefits sa consistency is that they are easier to learn and use, and also they are easier to remember, no? Users have to learn, no, only a single mode of operation that is applicable to all objects. So this principle works well for simple interfaces with limited operations, no, such as mga portable radio, gamay ra siya og buttons, di ba? So dali ra pud siya i-learn. So here all the user has to do is to learn what each button represents, no, and select accordingly. But sometimes lisod siya i-apply ang consistency, especially kung complicated ang interface, no, kung daghan kay siya operations, di ba? For example, word processing application, no, kanang mga MS Word, no, daghang kay commands dira, and there are hundreds of operations, and medyo consistency siguro is katulang sigurong mga controls siguro no nga ginagamit nato usually ang ma-apply. So there is simply not enough space, no, for 1,000 buttons, no, each of which maps to an individual operation, no. So kana mga control C, control X, no, those are consistent nga mga operation sa mga word processing. So even if there were if even if there were consistency sa ina nakadaghanan nga button, lisod kaayo, and it will be time consuming for the user to search through all of them. So a much more effective design solution is to create categories of commands that can be mapped into subsets of operations. Nakita ninyo na ay mga tab, na ay mga menus. So dito na organize ang dito pwede i-organize ang mga related nga mga commands. Okay, next. Alright. So here is, balik ta gamay. So we have an internal and external consistency. So when we talk about internal consistency, this refers to designing operations to behave the same within an application. Katong sa radio example, that is called internal nga consistency. External refers to designing operations, interfaces, and so on to be the same across applications and devices. So kung internal lang siya, consistency if that design is for within that certain application. So dili siya ma-apply sa lain. While external, like Control X, pwede siya ma-apply in other applications. For example, case of external inconsistency, we have phone remote control is different sa calculators and computer keypad. So dili siya pwede nga parehason og format. So this is an example of external inconsistency of a design. Okay, for affordance, okay, this is a term used to refer to an attribute of an object that allows people to know how to use it. Okay, so for example, a mouse button invites pushing kana palangdaan makabalota nga para asa siya nga function or para asa siyang activity. So since that is a button, so it means it can be activated by clicking. By the way, by way it is physically constrained in its plastic shell. So it is simple level to afford means sa design palangdaan, it gives us a clue unsay buhaton sa isa ka product. When the affordances of a physical object are perceptually obvious, sayo na siya, dali na lang unsaon siya paggamit or unsaon siya pag-interact. For example, kanang handle sa mga portahan, the door handle affords pulling, like pulling and then to open, diba? And for example, cup kanang mga baso na that affords grasping unsa ang paggamit, syempre gunitan. And a mouse, again, button affords pushing, and that is for affordance, mga examples. So the term here, or the term affordance, has since been much sikat sa interaction design. So being used to describe how interfaces should make it obvious as to what can be done when using them. Again, another example for design or the graphical elements that has affordance are buttons, icons, links, and scroll bars are some examples, and very obvious unsa ang purpose nila. All right. So what does affordance have to offer in interaction design? Okay, balik ta. Sorry. Okay, so so interfaces are virtual and do not have affordances like physical objects. So what you see on the monitor are the virtual interfaces, and they don't have the same affordances like the physical objects. Okay? And Don Norman, he suggests that there are two kinds of affordances, no? Perceived and real. Okay, so physical objects, they have the real affordances, no? And in contrast, ang user interface are screen-based and do not have this kind of real affordances. So using this distinction, ana siya nga, it does not make sense to try to design for real affordances at the interface. So dili siya pwede nga mag-design ka og physical, no? I-apply nimo siya sa virtual. Dili siya pwede. So except kuno when designing a physical devices like control consoles where affordances like pulling and pressing are helpful, no, in guiding the user to know what to do. So kana lang siguro mga manual, no, kung maglisod og visualize ang isa ka user sa pagbasa sa manual, at least na ay visualization dito asa i-click, no, sa physical na product. All right. Okay, so much better gihapon, no? Alternatively, screen-based interfaces are better conceptualized as perceived affordances, which are essentially learned conventions. Pero if you have a 1-year-old kid, no, swiping smartphone screen, zooming in and zooming out images with their finger and thumb, and touching menu options, that suggests the kind of learning comes naturally, no? So kay lahi man ta og tubo ugod, so lahi ta og naandan, no? And lahi pod og naandan ang mga bata ay mao naman gid ilang nadakan. So one of the challenges of applying more than one of the design in interaction design is that na siya trade-off, no? So for example, the more you try, no, constrain an interface, the less visible information becomes, no? So kung the more kuno nga butangan nimo constrain ang isa ka interface, mahimo siyang less visible. So the same can also happen when trying to apply a single design principle, no? For example, the more an interface is designed to affordance through trying to resemble the way physical objects look, the more it can become cluttered and difficult to use. So nasabtan ninyo, so dili siya pwede nga night times nga dili siya pwede madungan. So that is called trade-off, no? Pwede kung go ta sa kuan, kung go ta sa when you're going to target kaning what we called as constraint, no? Constraint versus visibility, usahay mas mo labaw ang constraint and less on the visibility, no? Magdepende sa design. And also kung ato ang objective is for affordance, no, sometimes the objects, no, as what we are trying to do, or gusto nato nga naadyoy resemblance, no, the way the physical objects look, ay mo man ay affordance, paglantaw niya makabalo din siya unsay function, no? The more nga it can become cluttered and difficult to use, no? Usahay compromise ang isa ka principle. So it can also be the case, the more an interface is designed to be aesthetic, no, the less usable it becomes. So also, kaning consistency can be problematic design principle, no? Trying to design an interface to be consistent with something can make it inconsistent with something else, no? Usay natay isa ka function or control nga we are trying to be more consistent, and some other are less so, okay? So sometimes furthermore, inconsistent interfaces are actually easier to use than consistent interfaces, no? For example, the illustration ni Jonathan Gordon's use of the analogy where asa gistore ang kutsilyo dira sa balay, no? Knives, they come in a variety of forms, no? Including the butter knives, knife steak, knife table knives, and napoy sa isda. So an easy place to put them all and subsequently locate them is in the top drawer by the sink. So ang pinaka the best nga place nga kung asa ni sila ibutang is at the top drawer sa if you have, no, kung namoy drawer sa inyong balay, and he said na that is the best place sa ibabaw sa lababo. So this makes it easy for everyone to find and follow a simple consistent rule. But what about the knives that don't fit, no, or are too sharp to put in the drawer, no, like carving knives and bread knives, no? Lahi siya og kuan kanang mas hait, no? They are placed in aman sa lebutang, they are placed in the wooden block kanang pansaka ng kutsilyo nga kahoy and inana. Now what about the best knives kept only for special occasions? What about for those knives nga nalay mga special occasions magamit, no? They can be placed in the cabinet in another room for safekeeping, no? And lahi-lahi, no? So lahi-lahi siya, so very quickly the consistency rule begins to break down. Kaya nga naman, gilantaw man na to ang safety pod, no? In terms ani nga problem. Alright. So I think that is the last part of the design principles. Alright. So here is an activity. Okay, so anyway, I will be also posting this one on Quipper. On Google Classroom rather, because prelim pa man ta. And this is the this lecture is the last part of module 3. I think that's all for this video lecture. And before we end, here are the takeaways, no, sa atong discussion sa module 3 overall. So again, interaction design is concerned with designing interactive products to support how people communicate and interact in their everyday working lives. So mas concerned si interaction design, no, and in designing the products para maka-support siya sa tao, no, ug unsay work niya or unsay event niya in his or her day in his or her daily mga bulaton. So kaduha, it is concerned with how to create quality user experiences for services, devices, and interactive products. So concerned po siya, no, in how to create quality user experiences. So dili lang usability but also quality user experiences. So multidisciplinary po siya, involving many inputs from wide-reaching disciplines and field. And also optimizing the interaction between users and interactive products requires consideration of a number of interdependent factors, no, that includes the use, context of use, the types of activity, the user experience goals, accessibility, cultural differences, and user groups. So these are the interdependent factors, no, dili siya separate, no? Usahay mag-overlap ni ang kaning gipang mention na to or na-discuss na to. And also lastly, the design principles such as feedback and simplicity are useful heuristics for informing, analyzing, and evaluating aspects of an interactive product. When you say heuristics, these are the criteria, no, as feedback as criteria for design principles can be useful, no, for informing, analyzing, and evaluating aspects of interactive product. Okay, so that is our takeaways for module, I think this is the summary, no, for the module 1, 2, and 3. All right. So the again, the activities will be posted in the G Classroom. So if you have any questions, you can do it, or you can chat through Messenger, or comment sa G Classroom. Okay, so God bless.